"Take off that coat," the woman at the champagne table sneered, loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. "Or are you afraid everyone will see what you're hiding?" Elena Brooks froze beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Belladonna Hotel, one hand gripping a silver serving tray, the other pulling her oversized black coat tighter around her full figure. At 5'6", with soft curves she had spent years trying to disappear beneath loose fabric, Elena had learned how quickly a room could turn cruel. She was 28, working 2 jobs to cover her mother's medical bills, and tonight's private gala paid enough to keep the electricity on for another month. So she swallowed the insult, lowered her eyes, and whispered, "I'm here to work." The blonde guest laughed. "Then try not to block the view." Several people chuckled. Elena felt the familiar heat of shame climb her throat, but she kept moving because dignity did not pay overdue bills. What no one noticed was the way she quietly slipped her untouched dinner roll into a napkin for the homeless veteran outside, or how she had spent 10 minutes calming a frightened kitchen assistant before service began. No one noticed except Luca Moretti. From the shadowed balcony above the ballroom, the 36-year-old mafia boss watched without expression. Luca controlled shipping routes from New York to Miami, owned half the buildings on the riverfront, and could silence a room with a glance. Men twice his age feared disappointing him. Enemies called him the Black King. His allies called him untouchable. But behind the tailored charcoal suit and cold grey eyes lived a man who had stopped trusting kindness after his younger brother died in a betrayal Luca had never forgiven. He had come to the gala to finalize a $10 million hotel acquisition, not to watch a waitress endure public humiliation. Yet when Elena straightened her shoulders and continued serving the same people who mocked her, something in him shifted. Not pity. Recognition. He knew what it looked like to hide pain behind discipline. Then disaster struck. A server stumbled near the staircase, sending a tower of crystal glasses toward a little girl in a white dress. Elena dropped her tray and moved first. She crossed nearly 12 feet before anyone else reacted, turned her body between the child and the falling glass and pulled the girl against her chest. Crystal shattered across the marble. A sharp edge sliced Elena's palm, but she only asked, "Are you hurt, sweetheart?" The child shook her head and clung to Elena's coat. The ballroom went silent. The blonde guest stared at the broken glasses and snapped, "Look what you've done. That display costs more than you make in a year." Elena's face paled. The stand was falling. "Excuses," the woman said. "Take off that ridiculous coat. You probably caught it because you're too big to move through a crowded room." This time the laughter did not come. A man's voice cut through the silence, low and controlled. "Say it again." Luca descended the staircase one measured step at a time. Every conversation died. Elena recognized him from newspaper photographs, but the real man was more intimidating. Broad shoulders, unreadable eyes, and the kind of stillness that made everyone else seem nervous. The blonde guest forced a smile. "Mr. Moretti, I was only joking." Luca stopped beside Elena, close enough to see the blood gathering in her palm. His gaze moved to the child, then to the shattered glass, then back to the woman. "She protected a child while the rest of you watched. Explain the joke." No one answered. Luca removed his jacket and placed it around Elena's shoulders, shielding her torn uniform from stares. "I don't need charity," she whispered. "Good," he said. "I don't offer it." He turned to the manager. "Double her wages, remove anyone who insults her." Then his gaze returned to the coat she gripped like armor. "Why do you hide?" Elena lifted her chin. "Because people are kinder when they see less of me." Luca's expression hardened. He faced his assistant. "Call Bianca Rossi. By morning I want 6 dresses made only for her." The ballroom forgot how to breathe. By 8 the next morning, Elena Brooks stood in a private suite on the 20th floor of the Belladonna Hotel, staring at 6 garment bags arranged like silent accusations beneath the gold light of sunrise. She had barely slept. After the gala, a hotel physician had cleaned the cut in her palm. The manager had apologized with trembling lips, and Luca Moretti had disappeared behind a wall of armed security before Elena could return his jacket. Now, Bianca Rossi, a silver-haired designer with a measuring tape around her neck, opened the first bag and revealed a deep emerald dress with soft sleeves and a waist shaped to honor Elena's curves instead of concealing them. Elena stepped back. I can't wear that. Bianca did not look offended. You mean you have never been allowed to wear something like this? Before Elena could answer, the suite doors opened. Luca entered in a black suit, followed by his attorney and the hotel manager. He did not greet anyone. He placed a folder on the table and looked at the manager. The acquisition is cancelled. The man went pale. Mr. Moretti, the contracts are ready. We agreed on $10 million. We agreed before I learned your staff works unpaid overtime, while your guests are encouraged to treat them like furniture. Luca's voice remained quiet, which somehow made it more dangerous. Every employee will receive what they are owed by noon. You will resign before lunch. The manager glanced desperately at Elena. This is because of her? Luca's gaze sharpened. No, this is because you showed me who you are in front of her. The manager was escorted out without another word. Elena watched the doors close, stunned by the speed with which Luca had dismantled a man's authority. You destroyed a business deal because someone insulted me? She asked. I ended a bad deal because cruelty makes people careless. Luca replied, Careless men lose money, loyalty, and eventually everything else. He turned toward the dresses. Choose one. Elena folded her arms across the oversized sweater she had worn to hide herself. You don't get to order my confidence like room service. Bianca quietly excused herself, leaving them alone near the tall windows. Luca studied Elena for a long moment, but he did not step closer. You're right. The answer disarmed her more than an argument would have. Then why did you do this? Because last night an entire room decided your body gave them permission to disrespect you. I wanted them to see how wrong they were. And what do you want me to see? His eyes lowered briefly to the bandage around her palm. That you do not have to disappear to survive. Elena looked away before he could see how deeply the words landed. She had heard compliments before, usually followed by conditions. You would be beautiful if you lost weight. You would look better if you dressed differently. Luca had not asked her to change. That frightened her more than mockery because kindness created hope, and hope had disappointed her before. A soft knock interrupted them. The little girl Elena had protected entered, holding the hand of an older housekeeper. She was Luca's 8-year-old niece, Sophia, whose father had died 3 years earlier. Sophia walked directly to Elena and held out a folded paper flower. Uncle Luca said brave people deserve something beautiful. Luca's expression tightened. I said no such thing. Sophia smiled. You were thinking it loudly. Elena laughed before she could stop herself. For one brief second, Luca's guarded face softened. He crouched to straighten Sophia's crooked hair ribbon, his large hands unexpectedly gentle. Elena saw the man beneath the reputation, and Luca caught her watching. The distance between them suddenly felt smaller than the 6 feet of carpet separating them. Sophia pointed toward the emerald dress. That one looks like a queen. Elena touched the fabric. Queens aren't usually waitresses with overdue bills. Luca rose. Titles are inherited. Dignity is earned. Bianca returned and helped Elena into the dress behind a silk divider. When Elena stepped out, she immediately reached for a shawl to cover herself, but Sophia gasped with delight. Luca said nothing at first. His gaze moved over the dress, then settled on Elena's face. It fits. Elena's voice was defensive. That is all you have to say? He stepped closer, stopping before she felt crowded. No, but the rest is not for a room full of people. Her breath caught. Then Luca noticed a thin red mark circling her wrist beneath the sleeve. His expression changed instantly. Who did that? Elena pulled her hand back. It's nothing. His voice lowered. Nothing does not leave fingerprints. Before she could answer, his phone rang. His security chief spoke only 3 sentences, but Luca's eyes turned cold. Someone had followed Elena home after the gala. Someone had photographed her apartment, and taped to her front door was a message written in black ink. Return the jacket, or your mother pays the price. Elena's face lost all colour. My mother is home alone. Luca was already moving. He took Elena's phone from the table, handed it to his security chief, and issued orders with the calm precision of a man who had survived too many emergencies to waste words. Send 2 cars to her building. No sirens. Bring Mrs. Brooks to the East residence. Check every entrance, every camera, every vehicle within 3 blocks. Elena grabbed his arm before he could turn away. You cannot just move my mother into some guarded mansion. Luca looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then back at her frightened eyes. Someone threatened her because they believe you matter to me. His voice lowered. Until I know who sent that message, she does not spend another minute unprotected. Elena released him as if the words had burned her. She had known Luca for less than a day, yet an enemy had already placed her mother in danger. This is your world, she whispered. I never asked to enter it. You did not enter it, Luca said. Someone dragged you to its door. He removed his phone from his pocket and called the number attached to Elena's mother's medical account. Within minutes, he learned that 3 payments had recently been redirected to an unfamiliar collection agency. Elena stared at him. How did you know to check that? Luca's expression turned unreadable. Threats rarely begin with a note. They begin with pressure. The thin marks around Elena's wrists suddenly made sense. She had not received them at the gala. 2 nights earlier, Victor Hale, the collection agent assigned to her mother's debt, had cornered Elena behind the diner where she worked her second job. He had squeezed her wrist and told her the debt could disappear if she agreed to meet him privately. Elena had refused and told no one because shame had trained her to endure quietly. When she finally admitted it, Luca's jaw tightened. You protected your mother by carrying this alone. I did what I had to do. No, he said, you did what people forced you to believe you had to do. Before Elena could answer, Sophia appeared in the doorway, still holding the paper flower. Luca immediately softened his voice and asked the housekeeper to take her downstairs. But Sophia ran to Elena first and wrapped both arms around her waist. You are coming back, right? Elena looked at Luca over the child's head. For a moment, the powerful mafia boss did not look cold. He looked afraid that Elena might say no. I will try, she promised. Luca sent Sophia away, then opened a locked cabinet and placed a small emergency phone into Elena's hand. 1 button reaches me. Elena almost refused, but the threat against her mother had changed the rules. What happens if I press it? I come. Even if you're in a meeting, the meeting ends. 30 minutes later, they arrived at Elena's apartment building in Brooklyn. The street was narrow, crowded with parked cars and aging brick buildings. Luca stepped out first, his black overcoat moving in the cold morning wind. Elena followed in the emerald dress beneath his jacket, feeling too visible and too protected at the same time. Residents watched from windows as Luca's men searched the entrance. The message remained taped to Elena's door. Return the jacket, or your mother pays the price. Luca studied the handwriting. This was not written by a debt collector. Elena looked at him. How can you know? He pointed to the final letter. A small crown had been drawn beneath it. It was the symbol of the Romano family, a rival organization that had tried to force Luca into an alliance through marriage. Their leader's daughter, Valentina Romano, had been the blonde guest who mocked Elena at the gala. Elena's stomach tightened. She did all this because you gave me a jacket? No, Luca said. She did this because I cancelled the hotel deal. He explained that the Belladonna acquisition had been designed to give the Romano family access to the riverfront. By walking away, Luca had cost them far more than money. Valentina believed Elena had influenced him. Before Elena could respond, the apartment door opened from inside. Her mother stood there, shaken but unharmed, guarded by 2 of Luca's men. Elena rushed forward and held her tightly. Then Mrs. Brooks noticed Luca. You are the man from the newspaper. Luca inclined his head respectfully. This is my fault. No, Elena said, surprising them both. She turned toward the message. The cruelty is theirs. Luca watched her straighten, no longer hiding beneath loose fabric, and something like pride flickered across his face. Then his security chief emerged from Elena's bedroom carrying a small black device. Someone had planted a listening transmitter beneath her window 3 days earlier, before Luca had ever spoken to her. Elena's blood ran cold. The threat was not only about the gala. Someone had been watching her before she met him. Luca opened the device and found a memory card containing photographs of Elena leaving the hospital, paying her mother's bills and walking to work. The final image showed Elena standing beside a man Luca recognized immediately. His dead brother's former bodyguard. Luca looked at her with a shock so sharp it seemed to change the air between them. Elena, he said quietly, why were you meeting the man who betrayed my family? Elena stared at the photograph in Luca's hand, then at the cold suspicion spreading across his face. "His name is Daniel Cross," she said. "He found me outside the hospital 3 weeks ago." Luca's security men shifted closer, but Luca raised one hand, keeping them back. The apartment felt suddenly smaller, the winter light grey against the windows, the distance between Luca and Elena wider than it had been minutes earlier. "Daniel Cross sold my brother's location to the Romano family," Luca said. 3 men died because of him. Elena's mother gripped the edge of the kitchen table. "Elena, what is he talking about?" "I don't know," Elena answered, her voice trembling but firm. "Daniel told me he worked with a charity that helped families with medical debt. He offered to clear the hospital balance if I delivered an envelope." Luca's eyes hardened. "Where?" "The Belladonna Hotel." Silence fell. Elena looked toward the emerald dress beneath Luca's jacket and finally understood why she had been assigned to the gala despite having no experience serving private events. "The envelope was sealed," she continued. "I left it in the manager's office before the guests arrived." Luca turned to his security chief. "Search the office. Lock down the hotel." "You think I carried something for them?" Elena said. "I think someone used you," Luca replied, but the warmth had vanished from his voice. Elena flinched as if he had touched the bruise on her wrist. "That is not the same as trusting me." Luca did not answer quickly enough. She removed his jacket from her shoulders and held it out. "Take it. Maybe that will make your enemies stop pretending I belong in your life." He looked at the jacket but did not accept it. "Keep it on. I am not one of your people to command. And I am not letting you stand there cold because I am angry at a dead man's ghost." The words struck them both. Luca stepped closer, then stopped several feet away, controlling the instinct to reach for her. "Tell me everything Daniel said." Elena pressed her bandaged palm against the table. She explained that Daniel knew her mother's diagnosis, her work schedule, and even the exact amount of the overdue balance. He had claimed an anonymous donor wanted to help. In return, Elena only had to deliver a cream-coloured envelope to the hotel manager. There was a photograph inside, she remembered. "I saw it when the seal tore." "Of whom?" "A young man beside a black car. He looked like you." Luca's face changed. He took out his phone and showed her an old picture of his younger brother, Marco. Elena nodded immediately. That was him. Luca's security chief called from the hallway. The manager's office had been emptied during the night, but hidden behind a wall panel was a ledger documenting payments from the Romano family to Victor Hale, the collection agent who had threatened Elena. There was also a reservation for a private wedding ceremony scheduled at the Belladonna before midnight. The groom was Luca Moretti. The bride was Valentina Romano. Elena looked at him sharply. "You are supposed to marry her tonight?" "I was supposed to sign an alliance contract," Luca said. "Marriage was one of their conditions. I never agreed. They seemed to believe you did." Before Luca could respond, the apartment lights went out. A crash sounded from the stairwell, followed by Sophia's frightened voice through Luca's emergency phone. Elena pulled the device from her pocket. "Uncle Luca, someone came into the house. They said you sent them." Luca's control shattered for the first time. "Sophia, lock the room and move away from the door." A man's voice came through the line. "Bring Elena Brooks to the Belladonna by 11, or the child disappears." The call ended. Luca was already ordering cars downstairs when Elena caught his sleeve. "They want me, not you. They want me to choose between you." His eyes burned with fury and fear, "and they believe I will sacrifice one to save the other." Elena lifted her chin. "Then we make them believe they are right." Luca turned on her. "No. Daniel gave me something else," she said. From inside the lining of her old coat, she removed a small brass key. "He said I would know when to use it." Luca recognized the number engraved on it. It belonged to a private vault beneath the Belladonna, a vault only Marco had known existed. His suspicion gave way to shock. Daniel had not betrayed Marco. He had hidden the evidence of who truly had. Luca looked at Elena as the truth settled between them. She had not been chosen because she was weak. She had been chosen because Daniel believed no one would notice the quiet waitress everyone underestimated. Luca stepped forward and placed his jacket around her shoulders again, his hands lingering for one careful second. "You are not going into that hotel alone." Elena met his gaze. Then stop standing in front of me like I need to be hidden." She moved beside him. "Stand with me." At that moment, the emergency phone rang again, and this time, Sophia was crying. Behind her voice, a wedding march had begun to play. The wedding march echoed through the emergency phone as Luca's convoy tore through Manhattan toward the Belladonna Hotel. Elena sat beside him in the armored sedan, the emerald dress hidden beneath his black jacket, the brass key clenched in her bandaged hand. Luca issued orders into his phone, sealing every exit and placing trusted men on the rooftops, but Elena noticed the way his thumb pressed against the scar across his palm. He was afraid, not for his empire, but for Sophia. "They expect you to storm the ballroom," Elena said. "Then we will disappoint them." Luca looked at her. "You are staying in the car. You promised to stand with me." That promise did not include walking into a trap. Elena leaned closer, refusing to lower her voice. "Sophia trusted me before she trusted the people guarding her. Daniel chose me because everyone overlooks women like me. Valentina still thinks I am only a frightened waitress hiding beneath a coat. Let her keep thinking that." Luca's jaw tightened. "And when she realizes you are not, it will be too late." The Belladonna rose ahead of them, its windows glowing against the late morning sky. They had 42 minutes before 11. Luca's men discovered that the hotel's main ballroom was filled with Romano guards disguised as wedding guests. Sophia was being held somewhere below the building, near the private vault. Luca turned toward Elena. "The moment I tell you to leave, you leave." She shook her head. "The moment I see Sophia, I decide for myself." For one tense second, the feared mafia boss looked ready to argue. Instead, he reached across the seat and carefully adjusted the collar of his jacket around her shoulders. "Stay where I can see you." They entered through the front doors together. The lobby went silent. White roses covered the marble staircase, musicians played beneath the chandeliers, and nearly 200 guests turned to watch Luca Moretti arrive with the curvy waitress Valentina had humiliated the night before. Elena felt every stare, but she did not pull the jacket closed. Luca walked at her side, not in front of her, his hand hovering near the small of her back without forcing her forward. Valentina stood at the altar in an ivory gown, smiling as though the entire scene belonged to her. "You brought the help," she said. "How sentimental." Luca stopped in the center aisle. "Release Sophia." Valentina lifted a champagne glass. "Sign the marriage contract first. Your niece returns safely, the Riverfront Alliance survives, and your little charity project goes back to carrying trays." Elena felt Luca's anger sharpen, but she stepped forward before he could answer. "You planted the transmitter in my apartment." Valentina's smile faded slightly. "You should be grateful. For the first time in your life, someone found you interesting." A few guests laughed nervously. Elena's old shame rose inside her, but this time it did not control her. She removed Luca's jacket and placed it over the back of a chair, revealing the emerald dress made precisely for her body. "You thought I covered myself because I was weak," she said. "I covered myself because people like you taught me that being seen was dangerous." She looked around the ballroom. "I am done helping cruel people feel comfortable." The laughter died. Luca's eyes remained fixed on her, pride replacing fear for one brief moment. Then Valentina clapped once, and 2 guards dragged Sophia onto the balcony above them. The child's hands were tied, but she was unharmed. Luca reached for his weapon. Elena caught his wrist. "The vault," she whispered. "This is a distraction." She slipped away through the service corridor while Luca held the room's attention. Below the kitchen, she found the numbered steel door Daniel had described. The brass key opened it. Inside were ledgers, audio recordings, photographs, and a sealed confession from Marco's former accountant. The evidence proved Valentina's father had ordered Marco's death, but the final file revealed something worse. The betrayal had been approved by Luca's own uncle, Antonio Moretti, the man standing beside the altar as Luca's most trusted advisor. Elena heard footsteps behind her. Antonio entered and locked the vault door. "Daniel should have chosen someone smarter," he said. Elena backed toward the alarm panel. "He chose someone you would underestimate." Antonio lunged for the evidence, but Elena struck the emergency release with her elbow. Steel shutters slammed through the hotel, trapping the Romano guards in separate sections. Luca's men moved instantly. Above them, gunfire cracked into the ceiling as guards surrendered, and Luca reached Sofia before Valentina could pull her away. Elena escaped the vault, carrying the ledger against her chest. She entered the ballroom as Luca placed Sofia safely behind his men. Antonio followed with a weapon aimed at Elena's back. "Drop it," he ordered. Luca turned and went completely still. Elena held the evidence higher. "Tell him what you did to Marco." Antonio smiled. His brother was weak, just like the woman he chose. Luca's voice was quieter than death. "I did not choose her because she needed protection." He stepped toward them. "I chose her because she had the courage to bring me the truth." Antonio's finger tightened on the trigger. Elena saw the movement first. She threw the ledger toward Luca and stepped sideways as a shot shattered the chandelier above them. Glass rained across the aisle. Luca fired once, striking Antonio's weapon from his hand, but Valentina seized Sofia and pressed a blade against the child's throat. "Sign the contract," she screamed, "or watch her bleed." Luca lowered his weapon. Elena looked at the clock above the altar. 11 was 60 seconds away, and Valentina still had one final move. The second hand moved toward 11 as Valentina tightened her grip on Sofia and held the blade close enough to make the child tremble. Luca lowered his weapon completely, but his eyes never left Sofia's face. "Let her go," he said. "You want my name, my empire, and the riverfront. Take them." Valentina smiled through tears of rage. "Sign the contract." A document waited on the altar beside a silver pen. Luca walked toward it slowly, each step drawing the attention of every guard in the ballroom. Elena watched him, understanding what no one else did. He was willing to surrender everything, but Valentina would never release Sofia. Cruel people did not stop when they received power. They only demanded more. Elena glanced at the shattered chandelier, the emergency shutters, and the musicians frozen near the stage. Then she noticed Sofia's paper flower lying beneath a chair beside Valentina. Elena stepped into the aisle. "You were right about one thing," she said. Valentina turned slightly. "I spent years trying not to be seen." Elena moved closer, her emerald dress catching the warm light, her shoulders no longer curved inward. "People talked over me, laughed at me, and assumed I was too ashamed to fight back. You made the same mistake." Luca stopped beside the altar. His gaze met Elena's, and she saw his warning. "Do not come closer." She answered with the smallest shake of her head. "Trust me." Elena looked at Sofia. "Sweetheart, do you remember what brave people deserve?" Sofia's eyes dropped toward the paper flower. "Something beautiful," she whispered. "Then look at it." Sofia suddenly bent her knees and dropped her weight. Valentina lost her grip for one crucial second. Elena rushed forward, pulling the child into her arms as Luca crossed the remaining distance and seized Valentina's wrist. The blade fell across the marble and slid beneath the altar. His men surrounded Valentina before she could move again. Luca did not strike her. He simply looked at her with the cold authority that had ended wars between dangerous families. "You threatened a child," he said. "There will be no alliance, no marriage, and no place left for your family to hide the truth." Across the ballroom, Antonio tried to escape through a service door, but the shutters remained locked. Luca's security chief stopped him and recovered the weapon. Elena handed the ledger to the federal investigator Daniel Cross had secretly contacted before disappearing. Daniel had never betrayed Marco. He had spent 3 years gathering evidence against the Romanos and Antonio, waiting for someone outside the mafia world to carry the final key without attracting suspicion. By noon, the recordings from the vault were being copied, the forced wedding contract was destroyed, and Sofia was safe in Elena's arms. Valentina and Antonio were taken away to face charges for kidnapping, conspiracy, extortion, and the murder of Luca's brother. The ballroom slowly emptied, leaving white roses scattered across broken glass. Elena stood near the windows while a paramedic checked Sofia. The danger had passed, yet her hands would not stop shaking. Luca approached without his guards. He picked up his jacket and placed it gently around Elena's shoulders, not to hide her dress, but to warm her. "You should have listened when I told you to stay behind me," he said. Elena looked at him. "You should have listened when I told you to stand beside me." For the first time since she had met him, Luca smiled. It was small, tired, and real. Then he lowered himself onto one knee in front of her, ignoring the shocked looks from the remaining staff. "I cannot promise my world will ever be simple," he said. "But I can promise you will never be asked to shrink inside it." Elena's eyes filled with tears. Luca took her bandaged hand with extraordinary care. "You were never difficult to see. Everyone else simply chose not to look." She touched his face, feeling the man beneath the power, the grief, and the armor. "And you were never too cold to love," she whispered. "You were only afraid love would become another weapon." Months later, Elena's mother received treatment through a foundation Elena helped create for families trapped by medical debt. The Belladonna reopened under new management, with fair wages and a strict policy protecting every employee's dignity. Elena did not become a decorative figure beside Luca. She became the foundation's director, using the courage everyone had underestimated. Luca remained feared by his enemies, but at home he learned to laugh with Sofia, listen without commanding, and lower his voice whenever Elena entered the room. On the first anniversary of the gala, Elena wore the emerald dress again. This time she did not cover her curves. Luca offered his hand beneath the same crystal chandeliers where she had once been mocked, and the entire room stood in respect. Their story had begun with a woman trying to disappear, and a powerful man who ordered dresses made for the person she already was. It ended with both of them finally seen, finally safe, and finally home. Would you have trusted Luca after one night, or would you have walked away from his dangerous world? Share your answer below and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia Boss stories about courage, protection, healing, and the kind of love that never asks anyone to become smaller.